Welcome to the Luminary Soul. Not just a podcast, but a sanctuary where we stir the soul, share spiritual wisdom, and ignite the spark of inspiration within you. Join us as we embark on our shared journey of self-discovery, exploring consciousness, spiritual evolution, and the boundless depths of our being. Through reflections, dialogues, and immersive healing sessions for us to awaken our true essence. Together, let's chart our course towards our luminous higher path and purpose. I'm your host, Simran Gole. Let the journey begin. Welcome, luminaries, to another episode of the Luminary Soul. I'm so excited for this episode. It's going to be super delicious because it is our first interview of the Luminary Soul podcast with someone who I've never met in person, but might as well be like a soul sibling who I've known for a very long time in these internet space. And so you've already heard a bit from her, but I'm going to give her the hype introduction that she so wonderfully deserves. We have Miss Biba Atta here with us today, and Biba is amazing and just completely multifaceted. She is a personal evolution facilitator, self-care catalyst, and author with a focus on personal growth and self-discovery. Biba supports and facilitates the personal evolution of powerful and driven women in the entrepreneurial and executive leadership space. Her work involves providing emotional and energetic support with a touch of intuition and energy healing. Biba's own personal evolution journey has been a source of inspiration for her work through her own experiences, and Biba has gained a valuable insight and set of tools that she now uses to support other women on their own journeys. And with a deep understanding of the challenges that come from personal evolution, Biba offers a safe and supportive space for women to explore their inner selves and embrace their true potential. Her approach is highly customized and personal, with each stage co-created with and for her clients, leading to living lives that are authentic, fulfilling, and deeply meaningful. Miss Biba Atta, thank you so much for coming on the Luminary Soul podcast. I'm so excited to have you.
Thank you for having me. It's definitely a pleasure and an honor. We have known each other for quite a long time, never met in person, and yet and still it's like there's such a connection between us that it's like, of course, why would I not come?
Yes, I'm so thrilled. Biba has been with me and through my sphere of spiritual evolution in these internet streets. Since many of you who listen to the Progressive Starseed podcast. So that was, a really long time back when I was even doing Akashic record readings, as many of you are familiar with and have at least heard of in earlier episodes. And Biba is so multifaceted. Biba is the biggest cheerleader, the biggest hype woman that I know. Biba, while not having worked with her myself in a professional setting, has been one of my biggest champions in my soul work and making sure that I don't fall off the wagon. I don't hide. It's like she's very much like, it's okay for you to be going through your things, but we need your magic, i.e. my sonic essence elixirs, which are coming out and coming back very soon. Biba is a huge fan of them and has been she's done case studies for them. She's given really great feedback, and she's at a point where she knows she has her particular blends. And when we talk more about that in a future episode, we'll talk more about what I'm talking about for those who don't know. But Biba knows my work. So,
I sure do.
She sure does. And she's just a big supporter. And we do very different modalities. We have very different approaches, but are very complementary, and our missions are very, very similar. And so I am so happy to introduce Biba to you all. And so we are going to be talking about affirmations, as you have seen in the title, because in the personal development space, especially within the last almost 6 to 7 years at this point, there's been a big shift in terms of how people navigate personal development and how that converges with spirituality. And there's been a
Mm-hmm.
lot of pushback with things that once were really popularized and
Mm-hmm.
mainstream, and almost like a questioning that has been very necessary. But
Mm-hmm.
I'm curious to hear your perspective, because we are going to be talking specifically about affirmations in this episode. But I almost feel like in some ways, the criticism of certain modalities has been great, and I'm glad these conversations are happening, but I'm almost starting to see where maybe there's almost an overcorrection in some aspects, where it's almost like a demonization of certain things, or things that we don't understand, because I see it with human design lately, and just and where almost where I know I'm not being attacked, but it's like, dang, like I get where you're coming from, and there are people that teach it in a way that's disempowering, but like, don't throw the whole thing away. And I see that with affirmations, because
Mm-hmm.
I've had my positioning with affirmations at one point where I was like, they don't work, and then it was, well, the way that they're taught doesn't work, but there's a certain way you can do it. And then it was like, well, it's not really my lane, because I'm not in that too much. So maybe I should let the people who do that best talk about it and chill. So that's pretty much where I've landed on that, and you being the glorious you, and just how you approach things with such compassion and balance, and you seek to see both sides and be a bridge. I see I see you as a bridge,
Hmm.
and how I know you, of just, yeah, you can have fiery opinions and reject things that don't work for you, but you can also see the other sides too, and build a bridge between the healthiest aspects of both of them. And that's one thing that I so appreciate about you, because sometimes I be wildin', and it's like, yo, Sim, you're very good at seeing nuance, but you're missing some nuance here. So I appreciate grounding forces like yourself. And so, Biba, I guess, like, let's dive a little bit into your origin story in terms
Oh,
of like
villain story? No,
affirmations.
I'm just kidding.
I love it. Yeah, so how did you come to using affirmations as a tool that was really helpful for your development?
I've been doing affirmations for a really long time. As a lot of people who've done affirmations, like you've heard about them, they've been around for a while. I think a lot of people became more familiar with affirmations like around The Secret and Louise Hay and all of that. And they're like, oh yeah, I want to do. If all I have to do is just convince myself that this stuff is true, then I can get $1 million in a Range Rover out front. So they're like, I wasn't necessarily looking for the physical things or money or things like that, but I wanted to feel better about my body. I've always been a big girl, and I haven't necessarily been thought of myself in a positive light, picked on, people made fun. Like growing up was definitely tough.
Mhm.
So I wanted to feel better about how I saw my body and my relationship with my body. And I figured that by trying affirmations, then maybe that is something that I'm missing. Like I've been on a number of diets. I've done a number of like crash things. I've done, I'm living in the gym. I've seen success in losing some weight, and then it's back and it's brought its friends. And so I'm like, well, it's not that I haven't done the work. Maybe it's something else that I need to do that can help to facilitate a better relationship and also weight loss in general. So I decided to do affirmations. And of course, they're telling you like you say these things, and then you're gonna watch yourself like accept it or think of those things as true, and then they'll create a lane for you to make a shift almost, and that lane opening could lead to whatever the things are. And I started, and I'm like, okay, we're just going to commit to this. I don't know how it's going to work. I'm hoping it does work. I'm kind of desperate, as a matter of fact. So I'm saying them, I'm saying them, I'm saying them for like, it had to be like over a couple weeks. And I'm getting frustrated because I'm like, I don't know if this is working. I don't think this is working. I actually don't feel good after I say these, because it's like constant reminder of how the things that I'm saying, it's not true. When I look at myself, I don't see these things that I'm saying that I see in a mirror. Like there's this disconnect, but I'm like, oh, I'm still gonna try because maybe I'm missing something. And eventually I got frustrated and I stopped doing it. And after a period of time, like left it alone. I had a conversation with a friend like some years later, and we were arguing about affirmations because she used them all the time, and I was like, they don't work. Affirmations are stupid. They don't work. And we had a nice little knockdown drag out about that. But later on, I came to understand affirmations differently. That the way that they're taught, to your point earlier, it's you have to believe the affirmations that you're saying in order for them to work. And if you come in your affirmations, just the act of coming to affirmations more than likely is about you changing how you think about something or how you feel or about your circumstances. So the act of coming to affirmations for most people indicates that what you're seeing, what you have, what you desire is not what is. And so you want to change. You don't, it's not happening. You don't believe it to be possible and all the other things that kind of go along with it. So you're coming to the practice to change something. And so when you're saying these affirmations as if it is already happening, as if it is true, when your personal reality says otherwise, then there are some forces within you that's just like, let me call bullshit on that. You know what I mean? Let me just call you on the carpet because none of this stuff is true. And that's usually where people get the game messed up. So, yes, affirmations worked wonderfully for her because the affirmations that she was saying, she 100% believed that about herself. She's looking in the mirror and she's saying, I am beautiful. Like she thought she was the queen bee. She absolutely was beautiful because that she believed that and that's how she carried herself. But for people who are coming to the practice with, I'm trying to feel beautiful, I'm trying to see myself as beautiful, and maybe affirmations are going to help me to see that in myself, then I'm going to say I'm beautiful. And but inherently, I don't believe that. That's why
Mm.
I'm here in the first place. So how can you then recognize that the affirmations are successful if you come away from the practice not feeling any different than when you stepped in, except you just had this activity and you're like, well, I'm hopeful,
Yeah.
and that's it.
Yeah, because that was one of the biggest game changers that you taught me because it was a live that you did probably like 4 or 5 years ago. We were doing EFT tapping and I was just tapping along and I remember mentioning like vulnerably because I remember I had positioned my question in a way where I didn't want to come across like I was trolling you or people that didn't know, but I said, I struggle because I said that it was something after and you were asking questions and it was I remember saying something to the effect of I struggle with affirmations because I don't believe what I'm saying, so then it doesn't feel like it's true. And the biggest light bulb that I got that changed the game for me was the I'm willing to believe instead of I am beautiful, like the example that you use, like I'm willing to believe I'm beautiful. I'm willing to take the steps to believe that I'm beautiful. So when I'm not there and I know I'm not there, I do
Mhm.
that instead. And that's where I was like, oh,
Mhm.
that that's the sauce. I was like, that's the sauce right there. So yeah, that is a really great takeaway because that's where a lot of people find resistance is that it doesn't work um at all. And um when it comes to the not working, a lot of times there's a negative emotions tied to like the positive statement. So I
Oh, sorry,
was
it's like a whole truck back here. I'm going to mute my mic.
oh oh, you're fine. Uh, but but yeah, no, it's just in terms of suppressing or denying negative emotions, there's a lot of ties to toxic positivity and people who accuse affirmations of being um I guess an example of toxic positivity. I'm using air quotes for those listening. Which I do believe exists to those who listen. I definitely think that things like this can be weaponized, but um in terms of approaching it in a healthy way, how would you suggest people navigate the negative emotions that they're feeling in regards to the affirmations that would best help them with whatever issue that they're looking to work with.
That actually is a really great question. I think of it as an entire practice. Like I look at it as a whole thing, and that anything that you get from the practice, whether it feels not so great or feels wonderful, is information to help you to navigate or take next steps. And so just the act of sitting with how you feel about the affirmations that you're saying, that's important information. So if I look in the mirror and I'm trying to work on feeling beautiful, and I don't believe myself to be beautiful, but I'm going to say this affirmation, I am beautiful. I get to sit there, not just continue moving forward or labeling or ladling it with a bunch more affirmations in hopes that one of these things is going to work. I get to sit there. I get to say, I'm beautiful, and then just sit. And
Mm,
then I will start to pay attention to any thoughts that come up. I'll start to pay attention to any sensations that come up in my body. I'll start to pay attention to how those sensations may feel. If there are any beliefs that come up, any stories, if there's a reminder of an experience that speaks to the opposite of what I'm saying. So, all of that is meaningful information that you can use to start to make some changes to the affirmation itself. So I'll give you an example. If I am in the mirror and I'm looking at myself and I don't feel beautiful and I say, I am beautiful. And then what comes up is, remember that time that you wore this thing and you didn't look good in it and people told you you didn't look good. Then I know that the reason that I'm thinking that I'm not beautiful is because of maybe this is what I'm wearing and it's not really flattering for me, or there was that one time when someone said something, and I can go back to that experience and do additional work or journaling or talk to my therapist or whatever, all the things. Or I can say, well, that was a one time situation. I never wore that outfit again. But the other outfit that I wore just yesterday killed. People were like, this is the move. So I can maybe bring my mind along to see, like, yeah, maybe in that moment wasn't my finest hour, but that was in that moment. But in other moments, there were plenty of times when I looked amazing and people recognized that I looked amazing. As a matter of fact, I got a couple phone numbers and my boyfriend came or so and so and all these things. And so you're looking for social, like your own personal experiential proof that what you're saying is true. But it's hard to do that if you're rushing through the activity in hopes that just by saying the statements that that's going to be the thing to make the change. You got to go in and you got to pay attention. You got to be present. You have to observe. And it's hard for people to do because we're rushing through life. So there's a lot of information in how you feel, even when it's negative, that you can use to make the practice better.
yeah, I loved how you said the feeling in your body because that's a big way that I coach people of just okay, there's a lot of different ways, but in terms of like a container, where is that in your body? Where is that in your field? But also
Mhm.
any feelings that are coming out, where does that live? I feel a lot of anxiety and pressure usually in my chest. And
Mm.
so just sitting with where is that coming from?
Mhm.
What does it have to say? What is it telling me? Um, there was a bubble. It just popped
Yes.
up on the screen. Interesting. Okay. Um,
It's a
technology,
sign.
gotta love it, but, also, where does it want to go
Mm. That's a great question.
is another one, like, where does it wanna move to?
Yeah.
Is it in my actual body, or is it out in my
Mm.
fields? Is it in the past? Does it wanna go in the future? It's like, really cool too, but that's definitely
Yeah.
more practical, like, for people who aren't as necessarily on the woo end of things, of just
Yes. Yes.
sitting with, like, where it's coming from, so there's a lot of options
Mhm.
there, but I thought that was really affirming that you mentioned really feeling into what you're feeling and, um, honoring the not so great feelings and hearing what it may have to say, even if it's not necessarily a verbal
Yeah.
communication, but just through sensation, through memory, through going back to those core beliefs that are there, and incrementally working with it, and not, oh, poof, you said these affirmations and yeah, you even took the extra step to feel it, and now it's all good and cured and alchemized. It's like, no, it gets to be a process. It gets to be a journey,
It
and
is.
that offers so much grace and compassion and understanding.
Mhm.
And also, I love that in that part we address that, the affirmations are not a cure-all solution. It's not an instant fix. It's not.
Definitely not.
Yeah, and it can sometimes be put that way. Oh, you're depressed, say some affirmations, do some EFT. And you'll manifest your way out of it, which a lot of people have gripes with, people who typically teach, not, I shouldn't say typically, but people who have taught manifestation,
Yeah.
and that have given it a bad rap too. So I love that there's a spaciousness and a practicality there where you get to just be with yourself, be with where you are, and yeah, it's okay to be yucky and feel
Yeah.
yucky
You
too.
should. I mean, it's part
Yeah,
of the human experience. I mean, what are we here to do? We're not here to
exactly.
be feeling like, the top half of the feelings register all the time. There are all these other lower half of the feelings register that exists. And if we weren't meant to experience all of it, then all of it wouldn't exist. But it does,
Yeah.
because that's part of our purpose as human beings. So, yeah.
Yeah, you can't bypass your way through the ick. It's
Yeah.
there to be felt. It's I always say that, the icky feelings are also a compass to
Mhm.
what's ahead,
Mhm.
so
Mhm.
that's always really good. And so in a nutshell, we really covered a great deal of what's really mystified about affirmations. That, no, it's not perfect. You don't have to believe what you're saying. I'm curious about your method, because you have a method called the Dynamic Affirmations Method. So I'm curious as to what that is, and what magic is there to be had with it.
Ooh. Well, we'll talk about
Yeah,
it.
let's talk about it.
Well, how the dynamic affirmations method came up was I was on Clubhouse, that old thing back in the day, back in
Oh,
yesteryear.
I forgot about Clubhouse. Yeah, that was a thing.
That was a
That was
big thing.
that was a time. Yeah.
Yeah, we had a time. We did. So I was having a time. I was on Clubhouse, and there was a person there. His name is Shaman Durek, and he used to run the most interesting Clubhouse rooms that I've ever been in a sense that he was talking about some things that I was interested in, and also he gave us opportunities to experiment with what he was saying. So he often talked about the way that we use words. The words that we use are important. The meaning of the words that we use are important. And the positioning of the words are important. So we are like an operating system in our bodies. And if you're looking to command your body in a particular way, you have to use the right language. And we aren't taught the right language. So he would do these interesting experiments, and I'd be like, oh my God, like I didn't even know that was possible, like to regulate my own temperature, like like by words. This is wild. So this one day he was talking about pretty much the same thing, and he said, let's just do this experiment. It was like really random out of the blue, and he did an affirmation, like a regular I am affirmation, because according to Wayne Dyer and a number of other like thought leaders in the space, like I am are the two most powerful words in the English language or in language in general. And they take it back to the Bible, even with how you command and how you affirm you. And that's mostly how we've learned to affirm. So we start with I am, or we treat it as something that's happening in the present now, even if it's not really our reality. And there was something else that you do with affirmations, and I've since forgotten, but those are the two main things. Like I am in the present. Oh, and it's positive. It has to be positive. This is how we're
Mhm.
taught. So he told us to do like I am something. And we're all repeating this to ourselves. And then he asks us to take a moment to check in. Like, how are you feeling? What are you noticing? all of the things. And so I'm like noticing that I'm feeling, you mentioned that you feel a lot of things like typically like in your chest area. Mine is in my stomach. Like, so yours is in the heart chakra, mine's in the solar plexus. And that's where I feel a lot of anxiety or even like positive feelings. Like, so after I said this affirmation, like I noticed that I felt like this yellow orb is, so I gave it a color. It's like this yellow or marigold orb, and it was a particular size, like a maybe like a little bit like a grapefruit or something. And then I can feel that there was a that some of the, I don't know how to describe it. So that some of it kind of like came out a little bit in like these little like mist or something that was around it, just a little bit, not my whole stomach, but just a nice little size. So after I said the affirmation, I'm like, oh, this is nice. I felt good. This is good. Then he said it a different way. And when he said it a different way, this, I can feel it in the same place. It was still marigold, but it felt like it was brighter and it was magnetized throughout my entire body. So we've gone from just this small area in my solar plexus and then changing two words of the same affirmation to something else. And it magnetized it so much, like I felt it everywhere. And so, and it was something simple. He went from saying, like, let's say, I am beautiful to you are beautiful. So you're going from the first person to the third person, like somebody else is narrating or speaking to you about you. Right? Right. Right. Right.
Oh.
Right. So when he said, you are beautiful, and then he was like very particular in instructing us to say, you are beautiful when we're talking about ourselves, it expanded everything. And I'm just like, I want to try it on all the things. So that was the start. And given that I do, I'm an energy healing practitioner, I also do some breath work. And then I'm definitely more, so much more now than I was at that time about craving or carving out space for being present and being more of an observer. So I added those two things in there along with centering yourself in the beginning of the practice so that you were really giving yourself the time and space that you deserve, and also using the entire practice as information and a time for you to really like let it marinate and and all that other
Ooh.
stuff. So really it's and it doesn't have to be long. It's like a 10-minute process. So there's the centering piece, the affirmations in themselves, then there is the observation piece, and then there is the energy healing piece at the end to kind of seal all that in. So you could just be a whole bright light walking around after you said it that way. Look at your face.
Oh.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, that's I love that because that's I've not heard of that before, but that's I literally was like, ooh, I want to like I'm about to try that tonight.
Yes. It makes such a difference.
Yeah.
And what it is that when we were little, if we like go back to when we were children and we weren't clear about where we started and where other people ended, we were just our little orbs and we're learning, we're sponges. And when people are addressing us, because you look in the mirror, like we don't know that I am this person, I and this is my mom. We just know that some movement is happening and somebody's going to tell me what this means so that I can now make this a reality. And so when people were addressing us, we got to the point where we recognize when they're talking to us, they're saying you. Look at you. You're such a cute baby. Oh my God, look at your
Oh,
little
okay.
feet. You're playing with your toys. Well, they're not saying I am doing these things when they're talking about you. So as a child, we're recognizing that when they say you and are talking about you, if they're looking at us or touching us, they're speaking to us. So we identify with you in our earlier years. So that's like old language almost to like in a particular point of your formative life. But then when you get older, you recognize that when they're saying you, what they mean is I, but that's not how you learned it first.
Oh,
Right.
that's good.
I know.
That's so good. That's
I
juicy.
know.
Okay.
And so then what that does, typically when you're saying these I am affirmations, we're going into the reason why it sometimes it doesn't feel good. It's because all of us have this our subconscious, And our subconscious basically has all the register of all of our experiences in life. It is our first brain, basically, when we are children and we're sponges and we're learning. So it is training. It's being trained. It's being programmed. It's being set. Then you get to a particular point where your regular conscious, your conscious develops. And that is where you can discern. You've got all of this information here. And based on this information here from your formative years, then you are measuring all of your interactions, experiences, everything against what you know from your subconscious memory. And then as we continue to grow, like things get in there, they don't necessarily come out of there. It's like a tape that plays, and it's just more information that we're taking on as we're growing. So your subconscious is meant to protect you. It's meant to keep you safe. And so if you don't have certain experiences, then, and that it can attribute like, well, when this happened before, we can do this, we can do that, this is what happened. Then it's like, all right, we got answers to deal with this because we're familiar. When you're starting to take risks and rolling outside your comfort zone, your subconscious is like, hold it.
Yeah.
Whoa, 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 whoa. Wait a minute. That's not safe. We don't know that. We don't know nothing about that. We not trying to know nothing about that. We need you to chill back here where it's comfortable, where there's no risk, where we know because we have all these experiences already. So what that looks like when you're saying affirmations, if you remember what I said earlier, you're coming to this practice because you are wanting to see something different. You're wanting to have a different experience. You're wanting to do different things. You want to feel a different way about yourself or see yourself differently. You want something other than what is, right?
Yeah.
So you're coming to this practice and you're saying, I am beautiful. When you tell yourself I am beautiful and you believe yourself to be beautiful, what happens to your life? Changes. It's different. You start making decisions differently. You start moving differently. Doors open that aren't necessarily open to you because you have this confidence that you may not have had before. You're not trying to be in the back of the room where nobody sees you underneath the table or blending in with the wall. When you feel beautiful and you start to feel a sense of confidence, you don't do the same things that you did before. Your life is not the same as it was before. You don't see things the same way as you did before. Like belief is everything to changing your life. And so your subconscious is aware. It's like, okay, well, we can't have you moving different. No, we can't have that. We can't have you in the front of the room because it's dangerous in the front of the room. Didn't we tell you it's dangerous? Didn't they make fun of you back in third grade? It's show and tell when you're running your Cabbage Patch doll. Don't you remember that? So what ends up occurring is that your inner voice, your inner critic, is like the agent of the subconscious to kind of shut you down from doing anything reckless. So it'll come in when you're trying to make these shifts. You're telling yourself you're beautiful. You're telling yourself you have $1 million in the bank when none of this is happening. And your inner critic is like, let me just level set this for you, baby. Let me just tell you what really the way the wind is blowing because you seem to believe that you gonna get out of like what you're used to. You ain't used to $1 million. So we absolutely ain't doing that. We gonna keep you at the $50.30. Like you familiar with that. We won't keep you here. So it's going to do things and start to go back to your personal experiences to remind you in some of the vicious of ways, because that's not even a word, the most vicious ways to make you feel bad. So you're like, you know what? Let me just stop this. I don't think this is ever going to happen for me. Let me just give up. Let me just not even do this. It's not working for me. I don't even want to give it a chance because if I come away from this practice and I feel crappy because reality has been put in my face and I recognize this is a crapshoot. This isn't possible. I don't see how I'm going to be able to go from what is to what I desire. And this isn't working. So then that means that the inner critic has done its job. Your self-conscious is like, we've lived to fight another day. She is safe. They are safe. He is safe. And it's not that it's out of some sort of malicious intent, which is sometimes what we tell ourselves. Like people are just like, I want to kill my ego. I'm like, okay, yeah, bro. Please.
Yeah, the whole ego. That ego death thing. I'm like, stop.
Probably not the move unless you want to be wearing a padded jacket for the remainder of your life. You know, if that's where you want to go, cool. But that's not necessarily the answer. But it's there to help you.
Mm-hmm.
And that's its version of helping you, keeping you comfortable where you know, like the devil, you know, like I know what to expect when I'm continuing to deal with this person or this situation because I've had this experience. But if I go outside of that, I don't know what's out there. I don't know if I'm going to be able to handle that. I don't know who I'm going to meet. Do I have the tools? Do I have the resources? Am I going to be able to sustain myself or thrive in this environment, or not even thrive, but survive? It wants you to survive. You're surviving now in this comfortable place. Let's not push it. Let's not get cute. Let's not be greedy.
Mm-hmm.
So that typically is how that works, but it gets bypassed when you start saying affirmations like with you are. It's like you're not saying that to yourself. It's like something outside of you is saying this. And it kind of just leapfrogs over top of this
Mm.
this inner critic. It's just different. It's a different experience. So yeah.
Yeah, I'm still digesting all that. Like, it's
That one was a
just
lot. I
like
just went like, what?
the mind blown. So is that part of your process? Like with
Mm.
the okay, so that is part of the ooh, sorry. Dynamic. Sorry. I'm still like digesting that. But yeah, so the dynamic affirmations method, that's part of what that is.
Hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. So I actually
Okay.
do this thing where so that people can have their own personal experience. I have like a 5-day free experience with it. So what it is like every day they get a video, and then they get like a little like a 1-day workbook. So it basically takes you through the whole bunch of all the steps. Well, no, that's not right. What it does is it takes you through the process of saying an affirmation this way, the way that we normally say it, and then giving you an opportunity to be like, all right, let me check in. Let me ask myself a few questions. Let me write this down. Let me see where I am. And then say that same one with the you are, and then give yourself an opportunity to process and see, like, do you notice a difference? And then over the next 5 days, it's like you get a new affirmation to add to the one that you did before. So by the end, you get 5 affirmations.
Oh.
And then you also have a record of I'm checking in every day and seeing the difference between the two. And then when I get to the end, what do I notice? When I started, where was I? And now that I'm here, where am I now? So
Okay.
it's really an opportunity to like let me experiment with myself for 5 days. So yeah.
Gotcha. Okay.
Hmm.
Okay, so yeah, that's a 5-day experience. People can just go on your website.
Hmm.
Okay, we'll
And sign
definitely
up for it.
cool. We'll
Yep.
definitely have the link in the show notes for you guys
Yes.
about that.
Yes.
Okay, wow. And so I know with what are the benefits of doing it this way? I mean, I know for me, it's that there's the realm of possibility, but in terms of tangible benefits that you've seen with people that you've worked with using this method of affirmations, what are some breakthroughs that have shown up in your practice with others?
What people typically say when they've done it this way is that they come away from the practice feeling more hopeful. They come away from the practice feeling more confident. They feel like things are possible, and then from that place, they're able to take certain action. I remember I was using it in particular when I was having to have difficult conversations.
Mm,
So I would have to like when I was asking for a raise, for example, it's like that's not the easiest thing to do. And I'd have to like have my own personal moment where I'm like, okay, remember you are and all the things, so that my confidence will be increased and I would feel better about some of the engagements and whatnot that were uncomfortable that I had to do. And I would come away from it not feeling so anxious and feeling more like it's all good. Like I get to come at this um confidently, and then no matter what happens, it's like I recognize that I've done something that I didn't feel comfortable doing. And then I end up with another experience to add to the multitude of other experiences, a
mm-hmm.
more recent one that speaks to something that I didn't think that I could do or that I didn't believe about myself. So it ends up making a lot of for me, it ended up helping me make a lot of changes in myself. Like I am who I am partially because of dynamic affirmations. Like it helped me to get to certain places a lot quicker when I've had my experience doing affirmations like the way before. it wasn't working. And it took me so long to get to this isn't working because I was committed. I really wanted something different. It's just such a much quicker process. It's
Okay.
much quicker.
Gotcha. So definitely, so from what I'm hearing you say, it's quicker from when you start to having an actual breakthrough. And
Hmm.
that makes a lot of sense because then people aren't having to swim through and try to navigate through the hiccups and kind of just that clumsiness of
Hmm.
when you're doing it, you don't really know, okay, is this helping? Is this good? Is this useful? I don't, it's not working. I don't feel good. So
Yeah.
poof, so and where they just give up and maybe not pick up any other modality that also could help them, and they just throw the whole thing out
Right.
altogether and say, oh, this woo woo stuff doesn't work. So that's really awesome. Okay. Okay. Very good. And so, gosh, this was such a really good conversation. It was so delicious and so juicy. And so, outside of your 5-day program, what are there more in-depth ways that people can work with you around this?
Sure. So there's a 5-day thing, and then that leads to the actual methods where they'll get, there's a big workbook that goes into what the affirmations are, how they came to be, how we've been saying affirmations before. And there are 5 different ones. So they focus on, there's one that focuses on money, self-love and healing, like health and wellness. There's work balance, work and life balance. And there is another one, personal power. So that's around confidence. So once we get to the middle of this workbook, then you'll get all of the steps to the methods. So you'll get a routine to do like the centering piece. You'll get 15 affirmations that are specific to whatever one you got. And then there's the journaling exercises in there so that you can tap into what you're feeling and giving yourself a moment to check in with yourself. And then
Mm.
there's a couple of energy healing scripts that goes along with it.
Oh.
So you get the full thing.
Okay, energy healing scripts.
Hmm.
Okay. And
So you mentioned tapping, and so it's definitely tapping.
okay.
So you'll have the tapping script, and then where you tap, and all that other kind of stuff. So it'll walk you through the entire exercise, and then there's some audios that go with it too, so you can follow along with my voice. So you're not necessarily, let me read how to center myself, or let me read what the I'm so where am I, so you're able to really be in the exercise as opposed to like reading and hoping that you're following along in the right way. So
Gotcha.
yeah.
Okay. Awesome. Awesome. Oh,
Yay.
this was such a really great and powerful conversation. We're going to have all the links to where you can find all these goodnesses and all of Biba's work as well. Because yeah, because you do she does do EFT tapping with a lot of this too, and
Mhm.
so and that I noticed with EFT, there's a lot of similar points of resistance that people have to
Mhm.
EFT with affirmations. And so,
Mhm.
yeah, it's so that's really good. And for those who aren't familiar with EFT, it's the emotional freedom technique where you're tapping on different parts of your body to move energy and to
Mhm.
help move yourself through emotions
Mhm.
and that may be uncomfortable a little bit quicker, and also to allow you to feel them too
Mhm.
holistically. And so
Yeah,
yeah, so this was such a great conversation. Thank you
I
so
know.
much for being here, the Luminary Soul.
Thank you. First of all, I can't even believe it's been an hour. Like it felt like I literally we just started talking.
I
That's
know.
what it feels like. I was like, oh my god, we're wrapping up. Oh yes, no, it's been an hour.
Yeah, I know. It's so easy to just like drift off. And so, yeah. And so, like I said, guys, you could find all the information about Biba and her work in the show notes on the podcast and in the video description if you are watching on YouTube. Thank you so much for watching, everyone, and peace. Thank you for joining us on this journey of the Luminary Soul. If you want to continue exploring beyond the podcast, don't forget to follow me on Instagram at theluminarysoul.co or visit my website, which is also theluminary